Hey everyone, I'm Brendan. I work on ZK stuff at Polygon, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the ZK Whiteboard Sessions interview series. Today we're with Gershta, who works with me at Polygon, specifically on Polygon Miden. We're joined by triple threat podcaster, validator, investor, and a Rose.
Hey. So I think we wanted to do this interview. We wanted to kind of talk to you, Gershta, because you've had a really interesting story getting into this industry, and we kind of thought that since a lot of our viewers, we believe, are kind of coming from other industries, trying to understand how to get into ZK, where to start. They're looking for material. I thought it would be really cool to explore a little bit how you found your way into it. So maybe tell us, but maybe before that, tell us a little bit about what you were doing before and maybe why you found this space interesting.
Yeah. So before this, I was CTO of a kind of Web2 startup that I'd started with some people. After having been CEO of a startup that I didn't start, I sort of that one got sold, and I went, well, I think I sort of know how to do this. Let me try it. So I teamed up with a couple people, and we went for it. And I kind of got tired of. I didn't find the product that motivating to me. We had picked something that the guys who were sales and marketing people were confident they could sell. So I sort of went through the iteration of bootstrap the product, we get it to being profitable, and then I was sort of ready for something more technically interesting and challenging for me. And my husband, who does some DeFi stuff, was sort of like, now might be a fun time to start playing around in, the Ethereum ecosystem. So last September, I just kind of started learning Solidity and going through this kind of a security roadmap, how to just doing hacking puzzles and looking at all of the different ways that you can break things and hack contracts. And I came across ZK Hack kind of from that and signed up for it, and then got really interested in it because I care a lot about privacy. I think it's really important. I think that we can do it a lot better than the way that we're currently doing it in the world. And the way to do that is through ZK. And the way where that is being developed and pushed is here in this space. And so I just got really excited about solving harder problems, about working on something that I think is really important kind of globally and to me personally.
As someone joining from the outside, you sort of mentioned that one of the first things you wanted to see was how to break things. How do you find things that are broken? How do you read audit reports? Do you I don't know, look for some hacks and then dive in when there's a bug or a hack?
So I really do love reading the recap threads of how hacks went down. Some of them are really boring. I find the social engineering ones really boring, but I find the ones where somebody cheats a Merkle path quite cool. I do enjoy reading through those. What I was looking at last year, I had never done any of that kind of stuff before. I had never done CTFs. I was brand new from scratch, and there are a bunch of kind of puzzle series that people have put together. There's Ethernauts, there's, I don't know, just a bunch of different things. And so I was sort of going through some of those and using that as my path to learn Solidity as well.
Cool. Why do you think you ended up choosing ZK? I know you mentioned you were interested in privacy, but was there anything else maybe about this community at this moment that appealed to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting to be on the front edge of something that's becoming a practical reality. The protocols that people are using are from the past 3 years. Planck was 2019, right? And the first practical things were within the past sort of 5 years. And it's just really exciting to be working with this kind of stuff. I think it's also really exciting to be in a space where anybody can jump in and do it. And that was one thing that I noticed when I started last year, was that there are people here who are, cryptographers with PhDs who've been doing it for decades. And then there are people here who just found the space exciting and the work interesting and started doing it because they wanted to do it. And I feel like everybody gets treated on an equal footing as long as they're doing a good job at what they're doing. And that, I think, so it's very meritocratic, which I think is also important to me. I think this is all
Mm,
underselling how excited I am about ZK. I am really excited about ZK. I didn't just fall into it, but there are all these cool things going on as well.
nice.
How did you find sort of like the math component? Because I know that I think seen as really intimidating for a lot of people. Did you previously have sort of an academic math background, or did you sort of like work your way through it? Just curious how that went.
I would consider myself to have had a very insufficient math background. It was quite frustrating, and I just kind of worked on working my way through it. So last year, while I was doing the ZK hack puzzles and working on solving all of those to learn ZK stuff, I was also going through like studying group theory and studying sort of more advanced linear algebra, whatever it was relevant to whatever thing I was doing, and just trying to fill in gaps. And I feel like I've spent the last year as well just trying to continue filling in gaps. I have a computer science background. So I did have to do some discrete math and some other things, but I don't have as much of a proof-based mathematical background as I would maybe like to have. Although people would say all you need is
Mm.
polynomials, and there is a lot to that as well. Like all you need is polynomials to do this stuff. I don't feel like I know something until I can recreate it from like first principles and explain it to people that way. And so in order to be able to do that, I think you do want to just keep digging, just keep working at it until you feel like you're getting a handle on it, I guess.
Do
Nice.
you have the experience now, sort of looking back? Do you have the sense of like, oh, it wasn't that hard, sort of like it looked like more of a like mountain to climb than it actually was in terms of like getting the kind of requisite math background.
Um,
Maybe not. No.
I don't know. I mean, so there's this thing that happens, right, where people like learn something and then they're like, "Oh, this thing is trivial," and like that's very frustrating to somebody who's learning it to have somebody be like, "You can figure this out. That thing's trivial." But I have learned about myself over the past year that maybe I am one of these people who like once I've learned something, I go, "Oh, it's trivial," just because I suddenly know it. So I sort of know what you're saying, but I also am not sure I want to answer yes to that question.
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely don't want to trivialize it. I just think that the like my personal opinion is that the math aspect of the scene is really intimidating, and it's still like difficult to kind of work through. But I don't think that it should be seen as like something that's insurmountable. So,
No, I agree with that. I think really there's a lot of stuff that's very intuitive, but that has a lot of terminology piled on top of it in order to teach it. So probably if you're not understanding it the first time, what's missing is the gap between like where your intuition could be and the way that it's being explained. And maybe what you need to do is like figure out how to map that terminology to something that's meaningful to you. So I think that to me was the thing that sort of cracks it open more.
I want to talk about resources and books, groups, things that also helped you along the way. As you're talking about this, though, it makes me think I know that somewhere there is a glossary of terms for ZK that has been created. That might be something maybe we'll try to dig up to add in the show notes to this because even that starting point, I think for some people might be really helpful, just so that when people are using some of these terms, they have somewhere to look. 'Cause otherwise, like those terms may actually only be defined within like large papers. And so, yeah, I think creating glossaries and these like, yeah, kind of a little bit simpler informational text is going to be really helpful. I know a lot of people are working on that at this moment. I mean, we're all creating resources. But yeah, let's talk resources. What kind of things helped you dig into this space? Like books potentially, or study clubs, or people who were helpful?
I think still far and away the most effective like value for time spent that I had was doing the ZK hack puzzles. Um, there is associated reading that comes with those, and that was helpful. If you kind of get stuck on them, there are hints, and I think you can you can get there, you know. And then there are write-ups if you're really stuck, but don't look at the write-ups. Figure it out yourself first. But I would say in terms of like value for time put in, those were definitely the highest. After that, um, there's something about just like clocking in every day, being around experts. So last fall, I did this study club. There were about five of us reading Justin Taylor's book. And that was really good because I don't know if I would have finished reading through the book on my own otherwise, but I did like make an effort to, even if I didn't have time to sit down with it as much as I wanted to, at least go over the chapter before we would meet to discuss. So that was helpful, and it was good timing for me to do it. Honestly, working at Maiden has been really great. I mean, when I decided I wanted to dig deeper, basically, I was like, well, I want to be doing this as much as I can, and I want to be around as many experts as I can be around. And so joining Maiden when I did, it was just Bobbin Threadbare and then I was the second person, which meant there aren't a lot of people already doing different parts of the work. Like there's just him and me, and I'm bringing engineering experience, which is useful, but it's like I can, anything that I'm sort of like really interested in that he thinks I might be able to do, I can kind of say, I really want to work on this thing and go for it. And so I got to do a lot of hands-on learning that way. And then there are, calls where we're discussing
Nice.
ZK stuff with Brendan and with Jordy and Daniel and the other people at Polygon. And so once I found out those calls existed, that was part of what made me really want to join, was to be able to sit in on those.
So it sounds like, sort of to recap, it was like following Twitter, like on Twitter, hacks and bugs, and digging into like what had happened. Doing the ZK Hack event series, which back last fall, this is 2021, it ran 7 weeks. There were 7 weeks of workshops and 6 puzzles. That event is actually coming up again soon, so maybe I'll mention it here. But next month, we're starting ZK Hack 3, and it will be 4 weeks with 3 puzzles. And so if anyone's interested, they could actually go through this again. It has a weekly cadence. You get to meet people along the way. So you did that. You then did the Thaler Book Club, which was also actually in the ZK Hack Discord. If anyone's watching and isn't in there, jump in, check it out. We have actually 3 study clubs going right now, including one around this series. And and then you joined a company. Yeah, and then you actually got firsthand experience working with a practitioner. Do you actually recommend that at some, like, or maybe the question here is like, at what stage did you want to leap into actually working? How far do you think people should go before they apply? I feel like there's a lot of people who are really nervous about getting involved if they don't feel like they have the full skill set yet.
I think if there's something you want to do and you want to get better at doing it, you should start doing it as early as possible, doing the actual thing that it is you want to be doing. Yeah, I didn't know, I didn't have any of the prerequisites for the job, really. Like, I didn't know ZK, I didn't know Rust. I also applied to the job anonymously, so I did not give like a normal resume experience. I submitted a PR, and then I emailed Bobbin, and I was like, hey, I want to work. We met actually at the ZK Hack after party, so we had talked for maybe 3 minutes or something, and I was just impressed by how quickly he had done as much as he's done in the space in like the span of about 3 years. He'd done a whole lot of stuff. And then I looked at what he'd done and I was like, well, he's a really good engineer. I'd be really happy to work with him. And he knows all this stuff. And I would get to like see this project from the beginning through its growth. So yeah, so I did a PR. I emailed him. I was like, I want to work. I want to do it anon. I've sort of done these things. We talked. And then I did like a half-time internship for 2 months. Oh, also, in that email, I was like, I don't know Rust, but I can learn Rust. Just give me 3 months or whatever. So I did this like half-time thing, and then I got hired full-time at the end of it. So I would say if you want to do it, like just go for it. Just push yourself. There are a lot of opportunities, and have some relevant expertise. It doesn't have to be ZK expertise. As long as it's useful, then like there is a space for you.
Yeah. And I guess what you're saying too is like there is a need for new people to join this space and be learning. And I think a lot of people, even who've been here for a long time, they're often learning new paradigms, new techniques. These are being introduced all the time. So even if you're at the learning stage, like you're going to be continuously learning. So why not jump in pretty soon? I know a lot of teams are looking for people. And so that's maybe something that people don't always realize is like a lot of these teams are missing talent still. So if you think you have something, I think it's really great to reach out to them.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for people, and we're not looking just for ZK people. We're looking for people who are good engineers and who are like interested in ZK and going to put in the time to learn it. But yeah.
Yeah.
And I would just maybe jump in there and say that there's a lot, like thinking about what we work on with Zero and what you're working on with Biden, like it's not all pure cryptography. Like I'm curious, in your experience at Biden, like how, because you're sort of doing two things, right? Like you're working with cryptography to verify execution of this computer that you're like building with polynomials. You're also like building the computer itself. I'm just curious, like
Oh yeah.
which of those two things was kind of most appealing, and like what do you enjoy most, and like between the two?
I like the spread of it, but you're right. There's been like a lot of learning for me that wasn't just EK stuff across the last year. Like this is my first time building a VM. I have previously done work on compilers, but I'm revisiting that, and it's been a while. That was my first job, like at the end of college and out of college, and so there's a lot of different kind of like deep engineering or whatever stuff going on, but it is in a different context, and so it's cool to take things that you might know from previous kind of computer science stuff and figure out how it maps to the ZK context while at the same time learning the ZK stuff. I really enjoy all of it. I would like to do more of all of it. There's like never enough time.
What do you think was the steepest learning curve of all? If you look back over the last now year and a bit, I guess, like maybe at what phase was it the hardest and which topics, yeah, do you think were the hardest?
I think the steepest learning curve was the first couple weeks of ZK Hack. I did not manage to solve the first puzzle. I had a good intuition for it, but I didn't know to use Sage. I had never used Sage, like, yeah, and it wasn't mentioned at all in the puzzle. So it turns out that everybody who solved it, like, solved it with that. Um, so I was kind of like trying to do it with Rust, which I also never looked at before. So anyway, I got stuck on that one. And then the second one, I didn't even really like I got sort of partway thinking about it, but did not come to like really an answer with it. And so then by the third one, like that's the point where you start to feel sort of like a little bit demoralized. It's like I'm spending all my time doing this thing and like making no progress. And it was very satisfying that I did get the third one. But that was probably the time that was like felt the steepest, but it's also the time of the biggest progress when you do push through it. Other Yeah, I mean, I think that's my answer for it. The beginning.
We should mention that like but you're saying like the first two you weren't able to do, the third one you were able to do. You ended up like winning the write-up submission on two of the like later
On
ones
the
as well.
third
So that
one.
was pretty cool. Like that
Yeah,
it, yeah, so it went from not being able to do it to actually having the best write-up of all.
yeah.
So that
It
was
was a good
really
week.
cool. That was quite a leap. It's nice. Let's talk about being Anon. I mean, I guess one question people might have is like, why Anon?
I think the honest answer is that I don't really know. I really value my privacy, but I'm not actually sure. I think this is one of
Okay.
those things where it's not real. There isn't really a rational reason. It's like it's emotional, and I just care about being able to have my privacy. That doesn't mean I won't tell people and choose to reveal things, but it's a choice to reveal. So I think there's sort of that personal feeling that I have, which is also probably part of what drives me to think that ZK and making privacy technology possible and private computation like a reality for everybody is really important. I was a witness to enough of the marketing stuff in Web 2 before this as well that you really see how invaded everybody's privacy is. Um, so I would say there's that. But the other thing is just it's really cool that it's possible. And it's kind of only possible in this space. And so to me, it's something that I think should be a reality is almost a reality. I'd like to be one of the people doing that and making it visible and kind of pushing it forward. So to go through an anonymous hiring process was incredibly cool. I did have to KYC with
Yeah.
Polygon when I signed the contract to get payments. But I only the deal during that internship was that only one person would know. And so I never like Bobbin didn't know. And in fact, I did the whole
Mm.
thing voice modded with the video off. I didn't kind of tell anybody, say anything to anybody who I was until I'd been in the space for about 6 months. I think, again, like I was saying, I really care about kind of meritocracy. And it felt really great to be like, I'm here only because of what I've done with ZK. So that's it. It's just like I've put this into the world with ZK, and now I'm working in ZK purely on that foundation. And I think it would be great for like everybody to be able to have that sort of an opportunity. Yeah.
Like being able to be sort of like recognized for your work without any sort of preconceptions about your identity or what else you've done, I think it's really powerful
Yeah.
thing. For the record, I assumed from your name that you were like a Romanian teenager or something, but yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. The first time I met people when I DNO'd a little bit to see people's reactions.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Did you like you probably also are working with Anon? You're on the other side of that as well, where you're meeting people in the community, working with people who are also anonymous. How do you think, like, I think there's a few things that change, obviously, preconceptions, stereotypes, things that people will inevitably project on other people. That's gone. But there is also a question about like reputation. How do you feel like in this space, how does one learn to get to know and trust Anons if you don't know who they are, you don't know their background, you don't know what they've done before?
I think um, I think my personal policy tends to be careful trust. Like give people the benefit of the doubt, but make sure that my bases are covered so I don't like end up getting in trouble. And
Rugged.
this, yeah, exactly, rugged. And this kind of comes from what I was doing beforehand, because for the 5 years before this, I was hiring remotely anyway, all contractors from wherever. And we were all, we were a global remote team. Like, I don't really know anything about any of those people. You just sort of do your best to read them early on and then give them a chance and make sure they can't destroy anything if they don't deserve to have the chance. And then, give them more and more as it goes. So I feel like it's the same thing. Reputation networks are flawed anyway. Like, unless it's somebody I know really well, how much does it count for? And I have this, I'm not really a big fan of credentialism, as you could probably guess by the fact that I wanted to come in and do something on a merit basis. But I think you can lock out a lot of really great people that way. Uh,
Definitely. There is, I mean, at the same time, though, there is in our community, there's folks who've been there. We know the work. We know that we can like trust that they're going to have done their very best and had some of the best people in the space to have a look at the work that they do. And therefore, like those libraries, those tools might be a little bit more trusted. I do think that there's like, in general, Anon or not, that is just like a different way of thinking. Like you're not trusting some stamp from a company. You're actually like seeing the work of people and sort of tracking that.
yeah.
So maybe that doesn't, names don't matter anymore.
I mean,
I like
plenty of,
that. Sadly, I started non-anon, so I can't really go back. Or unless there is an anon out there. That's me. Who knows?
okay, new Twitter handle.
Unless.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool that you were able to build up like such a strong reputation in like a fairly compressed amount of time. And I wonder if being a non like sort of like contributed to that, because like there's nothing to like there's like no prior work to prejudge or I think that sometimes when people are coming into this space or into the ZK space specifically, there can be a bias based on like whatever the last thing they did was, and so I think it's a cool approach.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, in particular, the last thing that I was doing, I'm sort of, I was proud of the process of like bootstrapping a company, but I wasn't particularly proud of the product. And so, like, it wasn't something that I feel aligns with like things that I think are really exciting in the world. But it does reflect on me because I, was part of bringing that thing to life. It's not like a bad product. I mean, it's like fine, whatever. It's like there are a million products like that are just, you don't get too excited unless it's like really useful for your work or whatever. But it wasn't something that I wanted to bring with me into my like first initial connection with people. What I wanted to bring with me was like the ZK love and whatever skill I had managed to garner by that point.
Nice. Any thoughts, anything kind of to share with the listeners going through these modules, these sessions? They're learning piece by piece. Yeah, is there anything you think that they should keep in mind?
The sessions are really great. It's a really great resource to have. So I would say going through them is great, and going through the resources that they list. But in general, like the best way to learn is to be hands-on. It's like either make it or break it. and by that I mean the technology, like make or break a protocol
Like
or
actually
a VM or
yeah,
whatever.
hack it or build it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and like that's how you're gonna,
Nice.
or if you know are more pencil and paper inclined, then like sit down and do the proofs or whatever. But I think ultimately, just as long as you get hands on and get hands on as quickly as possible, and like fail as hard as you can, as fast as you can, all the usual advice.
Cool. Thanks so much, Gershta, for this interview and sharing with us a little bit more context to your journey into ZK and, yeah, all the work that you're doing.
Thanks, Gershta.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thanks for having me.